Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of my shaving routine video where I show you the during the shave portion. Shave it up! If you haven't watched my pre-shave preparation video, you can find the link to that up here. And then tune in next week when I do the post-shave routine video. You can watch what I do for that. So let's talk about what I do. I've soaked my brush, have my soap ready. Let's go ahead and build a lather. I'll just cut to the point where I actually have my brush loaded and you're ready to go. All right, I've got my brush loaded. Let's wet my face and go. Now some people, when they're lathering, they like to bowl lather. I'm generally not a bowl latherer, though I do have a lathering bowl and it works. I just like to face lather. I find that it enhances the experience for me. That's just a preference thing. I like the way the brush feels on my face when I'm building up the lather. So that's just me. Now, a general rule of thumb that I have when I'm lathering up my soap is that if I can still see my face through the soap, it's not thick enough. In this case, I have a couple little spots right here, but there's not really any hair growing there, so I'm not going to worry about it. But that's what I like to do. I like to build it up so that I can't see my skin through the soap. That's a good rule of thumb for you if you are new to shaving. Okay. Then first, I'll do a with the growth or with the grain pass. Generally for me, on my face, that's downward. On my neck, it's upward. Now, like the pre-shave routine, there's also something to consider here, and that's time. Do you have time to do a 3-pass shave, or do you need a 3-pass shave? So there are variables that you need to consider. Do you need it, or do you want it? And what have your past shaves been like? If you're coming off of a couple of rough shaves, it's probably a best idea is for you to just take a break. Maybe do 1 pass and just kind of trim everything down, but don't worry about going too intense with it. Also, make sure that when you're doing this, I'm kind of going through this quickly because it's a video and you don't want to be here forever, but take your time, especially if you're learning. If you're just new to this, take your time. Don't rush through anything. Because a shave is supposed to be enjoyable. It's not just supposed to be a chore. You want to be able to take your time and really enjoy what you're doing. And that is especially true if you're a straight razor shaver. Definitely take your time with that. Now you notice you have double edge. If you have a double edge razor, you can use 2 edges. I prefer to do that. Some people like to just use one side of it and then swap, make sure that they use the second side, the second shave on the blade. I can't keep track of that. So I just use both sides equally-ish. And you notice I only do a couple swipes with one side because I don't want it to get too bogged down. Okay, now there's a lot of hair in the sink. I'm gonna have to make sure I rinse that out, but let's rinse off and get ready for the second pass. Now something I generally do so I left the sink full of water for that first pass, but for my second and third passes, I generally don't fill it back up. I'll just kind of rinse the razor off as I go. So this time, again, when I'm lathering, I like to make sure that I can't see my face. I can't see the skin. And like I said, the number of passes that you do will vary widely depending on what razor you're using, how much time you have, so the aggressiveness of the razor, and the pattern of growth on your face. Some people really don't need 3 passes. Some are just fine with 2. Other people need 3 and a cleanup. So it really just depends on what your preference is. But so second pass, I generally go across the growth or across the grain. So for me, that's generally this way across my face, except for over here, I go back that way. And then downward on my neck. So let's do that. A hint I'll give you with shaving on your subsequent passes, make sure that you contort your face a little bit like this. It makes it easier. Pulls the skin tighter. It makes it easier. No, it really does, especially if you're using a more aggressive razor. You don't want your skin to get folded up and caught in the razor. Or as we tell my 2-year-old, that's ouchies. Don't do that. Don't do that. On my lip, Across the growth means this way on this side and this way on this side. And like I said, make sure that you map out your face, because you don't know, unless you know which way the hair is really growing on your face, just going generally down, generally across, and then generally up or something like that isn't necessarily going to be the best thing for you. Make sure you know how your hair grows. Okay? And then let's go downward. Now, the key to shaving your neck, at least for me, is A, stretching, and B, no pressure. You want your razor to just barely be touching your neck. Okay, and if you feel tugging or you start to feel irritation, stop right away. See, I can feel just the slightest bit of tugging, ever so slight, but I think it might just be that the blade has been used a few times, and so it's probably on its last shave. All right, we're rinsed. Let's do pass number 3. Now, some people like to go with the grain or with the growth, against the growth, then across the growth. Sure, you can do that. Stallion does that, actually. He calls it his money pass. Is that what I do? No. But I've just found a routine that works for me. You find what works for you. Now, on your last pass, if your soap is just a little bit thin, that's generally okay. You're not mowing down a ton of growth. You just want it to be slick and you want it to cover where you're shaving. It's not always necessary to load up your brush again. Now, on the against the growth pass, really listen to your skin, really listen to what's going on, okay? And like I said, I like to tug on the skin, stretch it, and no pressure. And on the against the growth pass, it's really beneficial to rinse off more often than not, just because you really don't want stuff getting clogged up in there. Anything that might affect how the blade works, especially on that last pass, rinse it out. Now, this is kind of funny for me because along my jawline, it kind of grows a little bit sideways, so I generally go up and across. You can see that very well. Up and across like that. That's me. And I feel a little bit of roughness there. Give that a quick once over. But I also have that cut right there, so I want to be careful. Now the neck. Against the grain on the neck is not always necessary. In this case, it's been a few days since I shaved, so I want to make sure that I get it. But again, be very, very careful. No pressure. And for those of you that are straight razor shavers, I apologize, you can't do this. You can't go across on your neck. At least I've never seen anybody be able to do it. If you're shaving with a straight razor, generally 2 across the growth passes or something like that. Like for me, it would be 2 downward passes as your second and third pass would be okay. That's generally what I do. Just understand that you're not going to get the world's best shave on your neck, probably. But it can be close and it can be comfortable. All right. Now, generally, I lost my glasses, you'll see. I rinsed out my face. So generally what I'll do is I'll also shave my head. I'm not gonna do that right now just because it'll take too much time, but I'll lather up my head just like I usually do. Sometimes I will divide my head in half if I need to take my time. I'll do one half of the head first, then the other half of the head second. Reason being that you don't want your soap to dry out. Now, that's not always necessary. This is something that I do personally. I have found that I can go against the growth right off the bat, depending on the razor that I use, on my head, just on my head, not on my face. It doesn't always work out. That's generally what I do though, and it hasn't, I'd say 9 times out of 10, it's no problem. But just be careful. If you are a head shaver and you're just starting out, take your time, learn how to do it, learn how your hair grows on your head, and just don't rush it. And if you feel like you can't do against the growth, don't do it. Just do it with the growth or across the growth or whatever you're comfortable with. Don't try to do it, okay? Anyway, that's my during the shave routine. So make sure to tune in next week for the post-shave routine, which I'm going to film right now. You'll just have to wait until next week to see it. Tell me down in the comments, or better yet, fill out the survey that's in the description below. I've created another one. You can check out the results from the pre-shave survey that I put together. Make sure to take the during the shave survey. I'd love to hear what your shaving routine is. Do you go with the growth first, against the growth first, across the growth first? What do you do? I'd like to hear it, and I'd like to hear what works for you. And that'll be beneficial for anybody else that comes behind you and is able to see what you do. So that's it for this video. Thanks everybody. Be smooth and shave it up. We'll see you on the next one.